Hello everybody, good afternoon, welcome back. Jiujitsu2000 here today. I'm back and I have a sick stove. I've got the Optimus Polaris here. I've been running dirty fuel through it. I just plugged in a new canister here and check this out. The stove isn't even trying to light. So that tells me clearly that my fuel line is clogged, and I'm going to take you through the process of what I like to do to clean this and get this stove back up to peak performance. The only tool that you're going to need is the tool that's included with the Optimus Polaris. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure this valve is off, and I'm going to disconnect the fuel canister. I also have behind me, I have a fuel bottle full of regular automotive gasoline. If you don't have this, it's okay. We can still do this. We'll just use this one instead. But I'm going to use this for the cleaning process. So the silent cap came off. Now we have the stove here. So you see that? I'm just going to stick this right in those little notches. We're going to loosen this nut here. And this will get us the burner part out of the stove. Okay. So we take that off, set it aside where you're not going to lose it. Now let's pull this part off. We need to take this fuel line off. A lot of times you got to figure out which wrench it is. It's that one right there. So we're going to pull this fuel line off. Now we're going to take the small portion right here and we're going to remove this nut, and we're also going to remove this valve. So hopefully you can see this. This is all stuff that we can do in the field. Once you have that off, we're going to pull the burner out of the stove in its entirety. This is a little bit tricky, but it's not too bad. You can see that we've got everything dismantled now. So we're going to set this stove body away. And what we want to do is we want to work on the fuel line. We want to see if fuel flows through the fuel line. So taking a container, I'm going to use a clear container here. We're going to make sure that this valve is off on the fuel pump. Make sure I have plenty of pressure, and we are going to connect this. And let's put this in the fuel in the can here and turn the valve on and see if we get fuel. Yep, I got fuel. Let me show you that close up here. See that? So we know that our fuel line is good. So we know that the blockage is somewhere in here. First thing that I always check is this piece here. Okay, I'm going to dry it off. And right here we have a flat side on each side. And if you get any kind of buildup, you'll see it on this flat side. And I can tell you just from looking that this part is clean. If you see any kind of debris or anything on that, just take you a little flat edge and scrape the sides here and get rid of any debris that might be on the sides. But this one is perfectly clean. You can see that it's nice and clean on the sides. There's a good angle. Because there would be buildup right there on that flat surface. You can see the other side is very clean as well. So that tells me that this valve is okay. The next thing that we need to do is pull out the jet as well as the shaker needle. So to do that, we're going to use the bottom of our tool. There's a flat type screwdriver in there. We're just going to orient those together and we're going to remove the jet. I always put the bowl of the stove up facing the sky as I'm loosening this, because I don't want to lose my shaker needle or my jet. So there we go. We pop the jet out and it is filthy. Take a look at that. Wish I had a flashlight. Show you guys. Look at that. That is just dirty. Very dirty. So the next thing we need to do is we need to get out the shaker needle. See that? And that thing is dirty. Very dirty. So grabbing the shaker needle and the jet, we're going to poke the needle through the end of the jet here. There we go. We found the hole. Got the needle to go in. Take my rag and I'm going to just kind of clean this needle up a little bit. And just like the MSR, you can put that in that fuel and just kind of swish it around. And same thing with the jet. Just get those things going. In fact, if you want to add a little more fuel, you certainly can. And what we can also do is we can connect the fuel line here to the burner assembly, to the burner bell. And you'll see here in just a second what I'm going to try to do. There we go. Make sure you keep your finger or something over this, since we don't have a valve in there. We're going to just turn this on and just kind of flush out this burner, this line here. Just a little bit of fuel. And the fuel is very dirty, but we know that we are getting fuel, so that's a good thing. We can put this in, just kind of move it forward and backwards. Make sure that it moves freely. Looks like it feels pretty good. So I think this part here is probably good to go. Now we're just going to swash these guys around in here, this container. Look at that stuff getting darker and darker. It's all that junk coming off of that stuff. Pretty crazy. If you have something that you can use as a tool to stick inside of the jet to kind of remove stuff out of there, do it, but make sure you don't break off the tip of this piece. So just use it very, very lightly, don't get too crazy. Okay, so we're just kind of getting rid of a little bit of material out of there. Now, what we want to do is we want to see if the shaker needle fits freely in there. And I'm popping it up to see if I can see the needle popping up, and I can. If you can't see the needle popping up, you can generally feel it. Okay, so I'm just kind of running this back and forth, rolling them together, because when I roll them together, they loosen any kind of bad stuff that might be in there. Okay, so at this point, we're ready to put the jet and the needle back in the stove. So I'm going to put the bell upside down, and I'm going to set the jet and the needle just like this up into the hole. Just like this. In fact, you'll notice when you put your tool here, let me see if I can grab it like this. Watch the needle. When I put my tool in there, watch the needle rise. See that? We're just going to stick the needle in just like this and tighten the jet. Once you get it in there, you can flip it back. And this doesn't have to be gorilla tight, just snug it up. Just like that. Now what we want to do is we want to shake it. We want to make sure that we hear the shaker needle working. Now from here, we're going to install this valve temporarily. In fact, we could have it permanently installed. Let's go ahead and tighten that right now. This thing fits one way. There's a key. See, it's flat on the top here, right there by my pinky. See, it's got a flat part on the top, and that corresponds to the flat part here on the top of this. So I've got to make sure that I put it in at the right orientation so everything will fit the way it's supposed to. Okay, there we go. Something like that. Yep, there we go. So you see how they correspond together, just like that. Now I'm going to take that little nut, put the nut back on, use the tool to tighten the nut. Okay, let's listen one more time for the shaker. Sounds good. At this point, we can put our silent cap back on. We'll tighten this valve here. We'll also use the tool and tighten this nut right there. It doesn't have to be crazy tight, just snug it up. Now, let's attach the fuel line right here. There we go. Now let's get our tool and snug that up. Okay. So there we have it. We have a beautiful blue flame. I'm going to pump this up, give it a little more pressure. And there's a look at the new flame. The stove is all cleaned out. You see that? That's that shaker needle doing its thing. And this just goes to show you that it's always a good idea to flip this canister over to the off position when you're finished. Leave the stove wide open, and that'll clear out the fuel lines with air. If you don't do that, that's one of the things that would help gum this stove up. If you don't clear your fuel lines, because what happens is when the stove cools down and you have fuel in those lines, it just sits there and burns in the lines. So we're flipping the canister over, gonna let it air out, so to speak. There we go. Now we'll just let it continue, and then that stove will be ready to go next time we get it out. It won't have no gummed up anything because it's clear. We'll just wait for it to stop hissing. It won't light right now because all we're doing is getting air. See that? It's just air. So that stove is good to go, folks. I want to say thank you for joining me today on this video on how to clean your Optimus Polaris stove. These are beautiful stoves. They work good. But just in case you're running bad fuel, you're going to have to do this. I hope you got some good, useful information out of this video. Please feel free to leave your comments down below. Like this video. Share this video. And as always, thanks for stopping by. We'll see you next time. Bye.